Hello. Welcome back to Level 1 News. Today's December 7th. We're doing government and social news. We had one messed up recording already, but we fixed it now, and Wendell's drinking Orange Crush.
I need this. It was going to be a different Orange Crush, but I wasn't emotionally ready for something different. I made a lot of decisions this week, and so I'm all decisioned out, and it's like I need the comfort, warm, fuzzy blanket of the old standby diet Orange Crush.
I remember there for a while, the pop science was that your willpower, and I don't know what the cool down time was. They never, I guess 24 hours, but you have a reserve of willpower. And once you're spent, the rest of that amount of time, you're just going to be doing whatever. Like you can't stop yourself.
Yeah.
Welcome to Friday.
I've heard that about like fast food. So people, they work all day. They have to make a bunch of decisions at work, and then they come home and they're tired, and it's like, oh, I don't want to cook. I don't want to have to make that decision. So they get fast food.
Yeah. But this would mean that like the tougher your decisions are up to that point, the more likely for you to fail at whatever it is later in the day.
Yeah.
Which is why you don't want a court time or a surgery late in the day. Ever. For any reason.
Every surgery my mom's ever had has been in the morning, so that's probably good.
Which is great.
Yeah, the hospitals noticed that too.
Yeah,
Also, Devember is going on. We forgot to plug that. Linode is sponsoring Devember. You can get $100 of Linode credits. It is now December. You're in the first week. You're already behind unless you've already started. And there's a lot of really amazing Devember stuff going on, both on the gaming side and the development side. You can find out at the Level 1 forum. So be sure to check that out. And thanks, Linode. Check out the Linode link below for all your Linux hosting needs. $100 of credit. You know who's not involved in human rights abuse? Linode.
we are fairly confident.
Fairly confident.
Yeah.
We got
Don't hold us to that.
We got some freedom of information requests waiting, but we're fairly confident. One man I'm not so sure of. I do not have a lot of confidence that this man has never committed a human rights violation. In fact, I'm pretty sure he has. And I'm pretty sure some of them are ongoing, which makes this weird. And really, you could just rewrite this headline as China bad.
White House to unveil alliance to curb human rights abuse of tech. So this is talking about how you can have dual-use technologies. We can put an implant inside you that'll give us all sorts of really amazing health info, but if we overload it, we can explode it and kill you. Dual-use technology. We think that that's probably something we should keep an eye on. It's getting used to two very bad ends. Surveillance technology, maybe a little kidney harvesting, that kind of thing.
But they didn't make a list of the countries that they're even going to include, exclude.
It does seem like they're targeting China more and Facebook and Google less. And it's like, wait a minute, that knife cuts both ways.
Yeah.
Well, Google and Facebook aren't countries. But there is
They might as well be.
There's a line in here that even takes it further than what you said, Krista, because this is a non-binding agreement.
So it's,
this is a press release to just attack China.
This is just a burn book to determine who's popular.
I was reading the news stories, and I noticed that there is a theme for today's episode, which is news stories that don't matter.
It's all meetings, right? Meetings to determine things.
Yeah, we literally, it's like, okay, here's the thing, and we're going to talk about stuff, and it's like, here's why it doesn't matter.
Well, you said, I don't know if you said it in this iteration, but it is December, so it's time to coast.
Yeah, we're not going to get anything done. We might as well just pretend.
But that's in some cases you're right, but in other cases, and it seems to be week after week, it's the F.C.C. and the F.T.C. now headed by two just wolverines who are constantly attacking. And this one is interesting because this one isn't our country. Lena Khan has said, "Listen, I am the law, and not just the American law."
The F.T.C. sues to stop blockbuster chip deal between Nvidia and ARM. Yes, that's right. Nvidia, which is based here in the U.S., is being sued to not acquire something that exists in another country. This is, a bold move, Cotton. Let's see if it works out for them. 4-1 or 4-0. This was a unanimous vote. That was the thing that was surprising for me.
Well, Nvidia hasn't lobbied, right? That's the problem. Nvidia needs to do more for our glorious leaders. That's the thing. But I think another thing that gives them confidence is they're in a long line of people trying to stop this deal.
Yeah.
So it's like no one even cares. But this is just a nice little headline for the F.T.C.
Just get that out right before Christmas.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
You got to think Nvidia's backup plan is RISC-V. It's like, all right, we can't buy ARM. We'll just do it with RISC-V. Because RISC-V is open, but that would be not a RISC-V acquisition per se, but just using RISC-V intellectual property.
Well, China, as we know, is the enemy, the greatest enemy, and they do seem to be stirring a bit. It is worrying, especially that South China Sea. So we come up with all these rules about not using their technology, but there's a big difference between the man in the White House dictating a thing and the reality in the server rooms, because there's so much technological disconnect between the two. How does the big man on top ever confirm that these things were done correctly? Well, it's a long audit process, and the news is not good.
The U.S. government agencies, several of them, bought Chinese surveillance tech despite federal ban. Include Lorax, Dahua, and Hikvision, or Hikvision. Oh, these are, those are companies that TechCrunch alleges have been linked to human rights abuses, and they're on the naughty list. Well, federal agencies bought them anyway.
Is Lorax a Dr. Seuss character?
Lorax.
Oh, yeah, it's spelled differently. Yeah.
That was a good move of them, wasn't it? Change that one letter. The Seuss family can't do anything. Well, Krista, I believe this is another one of those stories that you previewed, where it's something that's gonna happen, but I guarantee you that nothing will come from this.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's a feel-good story, I guess.
Essentially a press release.
Crypto CEOs will testify before the U.S. House panel. Now, if you'd like to see a preview of what this is going to look like, go search for the video that has Pachai, Google. He's being grilled, and he's being grilled about what an iPhone does, and he's trying to explain, I don't know what an iPhone does because Google doesn't have anything to do with an iPhone. And he's trying to be very patient, but the Congress critter obviously doesn't understand that he's holding an iPhone in his hand.
Maxine Waters is going to run that show. You think she understands anything about cryptocurrency? You're out of your mind.
I don't know if any of our Congress critters really do.
There's probably one or two.
Maybe.
Our Congress critters don't understand, who makes what phone.
Most of them don't.
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't bother with phones anymore. I have an aide for that.
Yeah.
I have a human being whose only responsibility is just following me around with a phone.
But, okay, so in that mindset, inside the window of what you just said, how could we ever expect this to matter? We cannot, because it will not.
Biden administration makes first move on data privacy. So you might be thinking, does this have to do with aggregate data or like your self-driving car collecting all kinds of data to use in the cloud? Do you have some rights for that? Do you have some say-so or control? No. This literally has nothing to do with any of that. This is just the most amazing fluff piece that I've ever seen.
They went deep in the archive for this image.
Who's the illustration credit? I can't read that from here.
Sarah
Grillo
from Axios.
That's like a Performa 476 Macintosh. That's like super old.
See, I was focused on the curtains because I was like, oh, those are the curtains from House Flipper.
You didn't notice that the curtains were on a CRT?
Listen, they're the curtains from House Flipper.
How much House Flipper have you done this week?
I may have done some off stream, just a little.
How much is some though?
Just like one house. I flipped a house.
Well, that's what, like 4 hours?
Yeah. I should have streamed it.
What percentage you get out of your house? I gotta say, Krista is good at I'll flip a house and it's all just meme stuff, and the people are like, "Yeah, we'll give you $15,000." Krista always gets above 50% on her flips.
I had one that didn't do as well. I tried to cater it toward a particular person who didn't want a kitchen, which I thought was weird. So they didn't have a lot of bidding going on because the one guy was the only one who wanted a kitchen or didn't want a kitchen.
It's a classic mistake.
Yeah.
Classic builder mistake.
But
what if that guy would have died?
I want a 100% and get every seller or every buyer in the game.
Well, I know somebody who's done this, or at least claims to. And
I might be in trouble.
A little bit of terrorism, right? It is a horrible thing.
I hope that one kid with cancer get a card.
It doesn't excuse it. That's like, I was helping the cancer kid cross the street, so I shot into traffic. What am I, a monster? Come on. But U.S. lawmakers, once again, are deciding that they're going to do something about this. I was reading through it. I didn't get any concrete steps. Did you?
As usual.
Another fluff piece.
U.S. lawmakers announced bill to prohibit bot scalping of high-demand goods. So everyone has a fair chance of buying popular products at reasonable prices. This is one, when we're talking about GPUs, a lot of those are being sold directly to miners. There's not really scalping going on. There's just a very small trickle of supply going out. And even people that are not scalpers, if you can buy something, if you randomly win the lottery and you can buy something for $500 and sell it for $2,000, wouldn't most people sell it?
Yeah, it's called supply and demand.
Yeah. So
Yeah, we're lacking supply. That's how it works.
I'm curious what reasonable price is for them too, considering the state of everything.
Well, they're not necessarily benefiting from the aftermarket sales, but they are benefiting from the fact that everything they build is immediately sold. That's got to be nice.
in business, we'll have some more information about like margins and sales and blah blah blah. But yeah, things are out of control, and it would seem to be like scalpers are at fault, but it's really just supply.
Which the Broaden administration can do nothing about, but they can't admit that. But they can't do anything about it. Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general, if you've noticed, there's been a wave of acceptance among the banks. They are now getting in line to try to be a part of it, to try to create very complex financial products, to do Bitcoin-backed loans, just all kinds of madness. All of a sudden, something has turned, which means that you also have to go out and do the speaking tour where you say things where you pretend that you haven't crapped on Bitcoin solidly for the past 5 years.
The SEC chairman Gary Gensler, hey, this Bitcoin thing competes with the U.S. banking system. He's saying that with an air of like caution and undertones and stuff like that, while secretly cackling because they have control of a large amount now.
And he's no longer saying it's a fraud. He's saying, oh, maybe there's some products we could explore.
Now that I've acquired quite a bit, I have a vested interest in making sure the value goes up.
Yeah. It's funny how that works, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the anti-merger, I think that is going to be a meme for 22 for sure, don't you think?
I think you could read this article and mentally substitute the UK for like Caracas.
Or anywhere. No, maybe the U.S. for a while, but nobody else is going to let this kind of thing happen from now on.
St. Kitts and Nevis.
They are just going to shut it right down.
UK regulators order Facebook owner Meta to sell Giphy. St. Kitts and Nevis regulators order Facebook owner Meta to sell Giphy. Carl down the street orders Facebook owner Meta to sell Giphy. I mean, it's all basically the same. The UK not being part of the European Union, I'm not sure that
we're gonna get demonetized, and because we're gonna have too many controversial opinions about your pronunciation of that word.
Sorry.
Go to war in the comments.
Yeah, it is Meta, but I always want to say Meta.
Oh no, I was thinking the other word.
Oh.
Yeah.
So the crazy thing about this is that, so it's uncompetitive. The advertising business that Giphy used was stripped out by Meta because they're like, we don't need that. We have our own advertising business. These UK regulators were like, put it back. Imagine you got that email. You're a Facebook engineer, and you got that email yesterday.
They probably just commented it out because they knew that was going to happen. I've done that in the past to clients like, I want this feature removed. And I'm like, I'm just going to comment this out because they're going to want it back.
There's bank accounts and pay. That's like a lot.
Just comment it out. Just comment it out.
Just call up the bank. Could you put 2 slashes in front of my account real quick?
It's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, in the Facebook acquisition, it would be like, somebody cut off the guy's hands and feet. And then they're like, all right, well, we realize that you need hands and feet, so you need to put those back.
And they're just rotting in a trash can somewhere.
They knit like a little basket and hang it around his neck.
Oh.
There you go, buddy. You're fixed. You're restored.
These smell terrible.
Get back out there, little Giphy. Oh, God, this story is so dark.
Yeah.
Now, BuzzFeed News is not a great source. I know that. But this is from, like, real Freedom of Information documents. And we can only harken back to Australia.
Yes.
But it wasn't the Australian government. It was our FBI somehow operating in Australia. I still don't understand that one.
Yeah, no.
But they did a very, very similar thing because when it comes to possibly exposing themselves, that's always... keeping that from happening is always more important than, I don't know, protecting children from the worst possible thing.
Yeah, the CIA files say staffers committed crimes involving children that are the worst kind of crimes involving children that you can possibly have, that I have to very carefully avoid saying some words together because, oh boy, we did not get any money last week, so that's fine. They weren't prosecuted on this story. There's
a quote in here, and it was one of the federal guys who does like IT, like in the security part of their IT team. And he was doing a presentation at a conference. And one of the things he said was, I see an astounding amount of this kind of thing that we can't say because we'll be demonetized. And no one was alarmed about it. It's a room full of law enforcement.
I mean, that was disturbing. But he went on to say that, yeah, we basically weaponized that and then used it against our enemies. And it's like, wait, that's not the mission of protecting. That's the mission of we want to stay in control. That's bad.
And that's the fear here. And they didn't say it in those words exactly, but they really barely danced around it. They're saying, if we put one of these guys on the stand, we're afraid of what's going to come out.
You can't handle the truth.
It's kind of true. I don't know if I can handle that.
I mean, the truth around this kind of stuff, this is just like, it's a level of corruption that is hard to get your head around.
And Google has long had this policy of like, we don't want to work with the government, but you know that we have to sometimes. Except in this case, they didn't have to, but they gladly did, which is weird.
Google removes Pirate Bay domains from search results, citing a Dutch court order. So Brian said, I guess Brian, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, Brian. The Copyright Authority, they said, hey, this domain doesn't have anything but pirated material. Let's just block the whole domain. And Google's like, all right, whatever, fine.
I don't know if they said it with that much resistance.
Yeah, I think they were probably like, fantastic.
I think it was more like, yes, milady.
Then they delicately bent over and kissed her hand.
The EU, like we talked about, of course, the UK is not the EU, but like, what does the EU have in terms of chip fab? Do they even have anything?
Oh, there was a couple of things, but there's nothing like super insanely high end.
Nothing really useful. They got some data farms and stuff like that.
A couple places in Italy.
Of course, Ireland has, but the tax shelter stuff is done, right?
They need to bring Costa Rica into the European Union.
So I think this is a very smart statement. It's a very true statement, but it's politically, it seems like a terrible thing to do.
EU official, semiconductor independence is impossible. Yes, because the European Union doesn't really have a lot of semiconductor manufacturing.
But that's not true. It's not impossible. It's impossible in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is kind of the same as impossible,
Yeah.
depending on where you are. You know, if you're 85 years old right now, it's impossible.
Maybe we'll see it in our lifetimes.
No, I don't think so. Because they would have to like really make some smart decisions right now, and I don't see them doing that.
And spend a lot of money right now.
Yeah, which a bit of an issue in the world right now. And Israel. Now, one thing we know about Israel, not necessarily government, but really, I mean, the government has it. Is Israel is really good at spyware, amazingly good at it, shockingly so. They seem to have a monopoly on it, which makes this so much more terrifying.
Rights group petition Israel's top court over Omicron phone tracking.
Oh, you said.
Oh, no, I said the thing. Oh.
He was talking about a transformer.
I was talking about Star Trek. We were talking about stuff on Star Trek. Star Trek.
It's too late. It's too late. They're going to know.
Chronoton particles. Chronotrons.
So, yeah, they have...
Can't wait to see what the subtitle is on YouTube, what it thinks you said there.
In the whole vein of like, oh my God, we have to stop this. They've really stepped up the controls, but I can't say that.
Yeah.
They're gonna track you. That's what it is. They're tracking you.
They're already tracking you.
Using your phone.
And you know what?
And that was a Reuters article too. Reuters. You should go read Reuters.
If you can, they got a paywall.
They're
now.
proud of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's more for like if anybody shows up to actually manually check this, which I don't believe. It's like, look, that's a Reuters article. It's Reuters.
I'm not going to do that. That takes too much time. And so if you live almost anywhere in the world, there's probably some places in, like the Russian borders and stuff like that is not the case, but we have lived through, we've never seen a direct military conflict. All the wars we've experienced have been proxy wars. But a different kind of war is happening. In a proxy war, the citizens really don't have to deal with too much. Yeah, you maybe did some rationing, maybe you lose a loved one. Yeah, it's terrible. But this kind of stuff is way different. How much is the populace going to tolerate of this?
Israel and Iran broaden cyberwar to attack civilian targets. Yeah, remember the Iranians, they couldn't buy gas the other day, and now some personal info from like dating sites has been posted, and so it's just like
it was LGBT dating sites for people that you didn't necessarily know were LGBT. a little asymmetrical, but still, it's a terrible kind of war. Like I'm sure those people on the dating sites probably didn't do too much to contribute to the conflict.
Yeah.
Unfortunate. And the gas thing was crazy. Shows you how delicate the infrastructure is for all that stuff.
It was down for a long time.
Like a couple of weeks, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this got cut because it was in the original intro. We're also, speaking of bad infrastructure, we're also under a boil water advisory for 24 hours now?
Oh yeah, very long time.
But they figured out what it was.
Yeah,
It
it
was
was
a
just
break
taking them
somewhere.
forever to fix it.
So, man, I was driving today, and there was a woman I saw after I passed doing 35 and a 55.
It's going to drive me crazy.
And then, of course, when you pull up beside of them, I'm analyzing my brain. Do I want to let this person know what I feel about them? And it's an old lady, and she's over the wheel like this.
Oh.
And I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to say anything, but that person needs to be removed from the road. I don't care what we have to do. We have to do it, which is why I want this technology as soon as humanly possible. And let's not worry about age. I'll do it every 5 years, as long as everybody else has to do it every 5 years.
South Korea will use VR to determine if the elderly can keep driving. And they've got some pictures. There's actually some scenarios, like a little kid runs out in front of you and all kinds of random other stuff.
Graphical fidelity is better than I expected.
Not great, but not awful.
Not great. These kinds of programs are never good. So,
My concern is you put an old person in front of any sort of VR setup, and I don't know that they would understand it.
Good. Then they fail.
But working a vehicle and understanding VR are kind of two different skill sets. I guess it depends
A
on
Tesla?
how they set that up. Why would an old person be driving a Tesla?
We're all going to be driving Teslas,
Yeah.
Krista. Have you not seen what they're doing? They, when they're talking about this gas price thing, the woman that's supposed to be in charge of that, I think they didn't confirm her, right?
Not yet.
She's a straight communist. And they're like, how do you feel about the gas prices? She's like, I don't like gasoline engines. Problem solved. So, yeah, we're all going to be driving electric cars eventually.
We're going to have to start doing unfiltered news on Float Plane.
What would be left? Moving on to social media, and this is not anything new. We all knew it, but there was no admission. And even then, it's kind of like, everything that this man does has to be inspected with a fine-tooth comb, which is probably how it should be. But now, because of a lawsuit, they've kind of admitted it, but not publicly.
Trump's social media site quietly admits that it's based on Mastodon, and they have a link to the source code, and you can download the source code.
Which is all they needed to do to be in compliance with Mastodon's open source rules. So Mastodon has publicly said, looks like they're in compliance.
Woo! The
Still-
best kind of compliance.
Minimal. Still, I don't believe that you can use that yet, right?
No.
Doesn't exist yet. But soon.
TM.
And it might actually function now that we know that it's working on
It's something that's tried and true.
yeah.
Yeah.
Meta has an interesting new offer to the people of the UK. Here's the deal. I can protect you somewhat from revenge. Can we say that?
No, I don't think we
No.
should.
Adult revenge videos. I can protect you from those. But here's the catch, and it's a hell of a catch. You have to send me your videos and pictures.
Yeah, I trust that.
Yeah.
Meta is going to build tools to stop the spread of that thing, but that's the catch. Seems
Not
dark.
that thing, a different thing. Different spread.
It's I don't know, sending the Zuck, that kind of thing.
Now, if it's already out there
Doesn't matter.
and you see it in the wild, I can understand and be like, let me right click and save as. Put this on the Meta side. But if you just have it in your possession and you're like, what if? I wouldn't send them to Zuck.
no.
Oh.
That would be the last thing I would do.
Wasn't his initial claim to fame making a hot or not website?
Let me just run you down the most dystopian future possible. Remember the stuff that Snowden leaked? Let's imagine that we compute a hash of that PowerPoint presentation. And that hash is, this really long number, but that number is unique in the entire known universe. That's guaranteed. Like, we know nobody would argue that. That's how that actually works. Now let's suppose that all of these systems have all kinds of stuff in place to automatically hash everything and compute that number, because you need that anyway to do this. I mean, in order to figure out what is this file, it's doing the exact same thing for that as it is, this. So when the next Snowden uploads a presentation that generates a number, and that's the number, you're going to immediately know where it came from on what devices, because every device, your phone, your cloud provider, your hard drive, is computing what those numbers are to make it faster as you store something.
And that is going to become, again, like a drug dog. That can trigger on anything they want it to trigger on. And who's going to say otherwise? You think they're going to let you look at what they're doing?
Nope.
So it becomes, hey, this is the equivalent of searching your vehicle on the highway of, I detected the odor of marijuana. There's no argument against it. And this is terrible. It's a terrible thing to saddle you with. But they will. And another thing that they will do, much like all the banks, you think there was like a little memo went out to all the power brokers?
Yes.
It's like, it's time.
Yes, absolutely. Like, wherever they've invested their cash on hand, they were like, we are exploring this in the portfolio. You need to change your policies. We joke about that, but there are meetings like that where the heads of companies are like, this is what's happening in the industry. This is the direction we're moving in.
I assume this happens at the clinic where they get the teenage blood infusions. All right, they're all sitting around a table. They got their arms
They got
out.
cucumbers on their eyes. They're just
relaxing.
So Jamie, Meta needs to allow more cryptocurrency ads, according to Engadget here, and Jamie Dimon is just, it's like, yeah, at least this is what we're gonna do.
What idiot argues for more ads? No matter what they're for.
But these ads are going to make a lot of money, Krista.
What's the people who argue for more ads are the people who are selling the ad space. Now, the way this works is that there are different regulatory licenses for crypto, and who knew there were this many? Previously, they wanted only the top 3. Now they've expanded it to 27. So you'll be seeing a lot more crypto ads if you use Meta, which you shouldn't.
The article also talked a little bit about Diem, which was Facebook's failed attempt to do that. So expect to see that come back in one form or another.
That got spiked down so hard that they haven't even mentioned it.
It's still there. Don't worry. They talk about it at the blood transfusion meeting, but they're not supposed to talk about it outside that.
At the blood transfusion meeting, one of the big memes is like, oh god, here Mark's going on a Diem rant again. Diem.
Yeah.
It makes me not even want to get teenage blood.
Zuckerberg's just going around taking people's cucumber slices and eating them because that's what he thinks you're supposed to do.
He can only, it's not, Zuckerberg doesn't get the blood transfusion. He gets an oil transfusion, but he can only have the original 1800s oil that it was processed during a different way.
Not because of his build, that's just his preference.
Yeah.
Well, Reddit, you don't hear much about Reddit, and Reddit is social media, but it doesn't get considered with all the other big dogs. When you talk about big social media, nobody talks about Reddit.
Which is kind of weird.
They're tired of that.
Yeah.
Reddit rolls out real-time features to keep users engaged. I was really excited to see what these were. It's just animated up and down vote counters. So as something is being downvoted up or upvoted or downvoted, the page doesn't have to reload and you get little animations.
I've noticed that sometimes when I watch TikToks as GIFs posted somewhere else, they have those little hearts that spawn.
Yeah.
And it's so distracting.
No, you need that endorphin. Any little thing like that to get the endorphins. Because when you post it, it's like, oh, yes.
Look, someone's putting hearts on my video. Like, favorite, and subscribe.
Well, maybe you're thinking, hey, you know what? I'll go on Reddit, I'll post some really amazing memes, and I'll get to watch those animations. And I'll get the fulfillment that all the rest of my life has denied me. But wait, because the memes, at least on Twitter, actually I said Reddit, didn't I? This is Twitter, but I bet Reddit will adopt this.
Yeah.
The memes are endangered.
Twitter expands safety policy and bans the posting of images of people without their consent. No. Existential dread herald. No.
You know who loved this?
Jack Dorsey.
Vietnam.
It's on one hand, it's like, oh, that maybe would be nice, but at the same time, you lose so many great memes because of that.
Michael Jordan crying.
Oh, yeah.
Salt Bay.
Oh.
Greta. This is catastrophic.
It is a little coincidental, too, that all of these changes happen. And they've already started banning people and deleting old tweets and things like that. That happens immediately after Jack Dorsey's like, well, you know what? I'm out. We get more about that in the business section.
Yeah, that's true. They didn't even wait a day, did they?
No.
Will that kill Twitter a little bit? Because part of the joy of Twitter is seeing something trending on the sidebar and then being like, what is that? And then you see pictures of like a live event happening.
I don't think so. It's so unenforceable that it won't be universally enforced. It will just be used to remove dissent like everything else on Twitter.
Yeah.
Right. As we see with all of the changes, removing dissent is the goal for a lot of things.
And not only is it the goal, they're succeeding at it. They're really good at it. That's the terrifying part. It has been a long time. What was the last hot TikTok stupid challenge?
Devious licks.
Oh,
Also,
yeah,
slap your
devious.
teacher, I think, was one.
Oh, I don't remember slap your teacher.
That one, I think, was relatively recent. I saw an article about it, but
That's assault charges, isn't it?
that is just blatant crime.
And another challenge that will definitely result in some charges, if not you bleeding out on my front step. This is a real risk, people. You should not play around with this.
Door-kicking TikTok trend mistaken for home invasions, prompting calls to police.
This has to be happening in the north, right? Like, you can't do that around here. Even kids have more sense than that around here.
Potoma, California is the police that's commenting on it.
Yes, if someone kicks a door in on a residential house around here, there is a non-trivial % chance that they're just going to shoot you.
There's
But
there's a shotgun on the other side of that door.
But I think part of the meme is they don't kick it in right away. It's an escalation. So you kick harder and harder and harder, which gives me time to set up on the other side of that door.
You don't really need a lot of time. I feel like by kick number 3 is probably, there's a greater than 50% chance that by kick number 4 there's not going to be any more escalations.
And they did say that a couple of instances the doors have been kicked completely in. I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but just a real bad idea.
Yeah, around here, that's just cause.
Yeah, but in California. You do you know what? Everything I just said doesn't count for California. Do whatever you want in California. There are no laws in California. You know what? Just kick in somebody's door and then head down to the TJ Maxx and walk out with whatever you want because they don't care. They don't care at all. Now, last week we talked about that Australian politician, remember?
Yep.
And we got some comments.
Confirmed your suspicions.
He was a terrible person, although I'm still not sure because, again, it was a bad law that affected a terrible person and benefited a terrible person. And it's like, oh, I don't know where to land here. I'm in the exact same place here. I assume this guy is terrible, right?
It seems like it.
But it is also a dissenting voice that has been silenced by social media.
Greg Kelly, MP banned from Facebook, appointed to Parliament's social media inquiry. Why was he banned? Saying things.
He asked some questions that are not allowed to be asked. And so he was banned, and then they came up with this council to decide if social media was, restricting too much. They put him on it. I have a feeling I know how he's going to vote.
Should you be banned from social media for if you're a politician and you say that the earth is flat?
They actually made the argument that he wasn't commenting as a politician. He was just commenting as a user. And they've used that to say we can do this.
Would we weep for the future of humanity if somebody like Michael Jordan was a very pro-flat earth kind of a thing? Because so many people look up to him.
But it would just be Michael Jordan the person, not Michael Jordan the basketball player.
That was his one controversy. Do you know that story? So he's from North Carolina, and there was a black guy running for the governor of North Carolina against Jesse Helms. Jesse Helms was like, when we talk about racists in government, Jesse Helms was a racist in government. There is so much documentation. And spoiler alert, Jesse Helms won that race, and his quote after he won it was, "There'll be no happiness in Mudville tonight." The man was a monster.
Oh.
So everybody was like, "Mike, you're the king of the world. You got to get behind this other guy." And Mike's quote was, Republicans buy shoes too. The man's a capitalist.
Wow.
So, your question
That's the world
has
we live
actually
in.
played out.
Sigh. Weep for humanity. Enjoy your Orange Crush. It takes the pain away.
While you can.